Now, if you think about hives and what it came from, back in whenever beekeeping started with man, they did not have a Langstroth hive. Imagine that. So you can see what they use: grass, gourds, logs, barrels, clay pots, a bunch of different things. We underestimate the fact that a bee will live in the ground, or it'll live in a log, or it'll live by nature, whatever it can find that has a cavity. And it's really fascinating to think about how you keep bees, but you need to have movable comb in New Jersey, so a lot of these methods have gone away. Of course, you had the skep, which was a predominant type of beehive for a long period of time. They're made from wicker. You can see how they're making them. They gather a cluster of straw or whatever material, and they use it to wrap it, and they create the basket, and they hang them, or they set them somewhere, and they keep bees in it. I've seen a recent take on the skep where they're taking reed, and they're putting it together in bundles, and they're fascinating back and forth, and then they cut them in a jig and make sides to make a Langstroth hive. And they hang Langstroth. And the reason for that is you got the natural substrate on the outside. It breathes very well. It doesn't mold and whatever. And it's really fascinating. So it's the modern take on the skep, but it allows you to use removable hives. There's a video on YouTube. You can go check out. It's really nice. Now, when did man keep hive? It was in Greece. They're the ones that are credited with the first one. They used the tub hive. To me, that looks like a basket, but thousands of years ago. And if you think about it, it graduated from this to a horizontal one in countries today. We saw when we went to the Chester meeting for Eastern Apiculture Society, they have logs that they're using that they hang from a tree. And they're using those type of cavities, and they still use those wherever long hives are predominant. So in the United States and predominantly the Eastern European, they use traditional ware national standard hives, but in South America and other places, they're still using long hives, or they're using logs and these type of devices still. So talking about it, one of the things that comes as a discussion, if you took a piece of rope and a piece of rope and you held it, its natural shape would be a curve. And that's the premise of this hive. The person took a reed and put it down, and the lighting is a little challenging here, but you can see they have support ropes, and they build from the top down very much like a top bar hive, but they fasten here and it gives it rigidity. And the premise of this is the bees, as they festoon and hang like monkeys from each other, will create that natural shape. And if you look at a hive in nature, they will have that rounded shape on the bottom. So this is somebody's take on creating a natural hive with a shape that should hopefully fit their lifestyle. Now, this is the opposite polystyrene hive, made of hardened material. That's styrofoam. You could buy these in kits. They used to make styrofoam hives, and they were a disaster, is what I've been told. You put them out, and bees would be okay in them, but critters would eat through them. Think about a cooler that you could buy at a box store. They're real soft. You can poke your hand. If you drop it, they crack and all that. This is a different beast. They had these at the last couple shows that I've been at, and they're really hardened. They're almost as hard as like the plastic tabletop that you're sitting on. And what was really neat with one of them that drew a lot of attention is they took one of these boxes and they sprayed it with bed liner material. It was black, but it was as hard as nails on the outside. Now, why 8 times more insulation than wood hives? People are always trying to solve the heat problem and think that's a deal that they need to resolve. Langstroth didn't think so, but some people think that this is conservation of heat. And they use so much stores to go get pollen and honey and water and whatever to keep the climate inside. This is purported to have a more stable climate inside. Now, there is conversation about water problems and moisture problems. Moisture is what kills bees in the winter, for example, but they ventilate these properly and they're not a problem. So interesting idea. Polystyrene. So much so that people have always been trying to figure out how to get modern hives into non-modern areas. This is an example of an urban beehive by a student who designed it. And the important part is, if you look at these pieces, you can pack it in a crate, very small, and you can ship it. Try and ship a Langstroth box out, it becomes very difficult and bulky. Very lightweight, but still serves the purpose. So that's what this student was trying to achieve for countries that didn't want to work with Langstroth. This might be an option for them. And they stack and they do look kind of cool. Condo hive. Very similar to the premise I'm going to show you a little bit later. It's a longer box. Typical Langstroth dimensions. Works with Langstroth hives, but you could stack box on top. The premise of this type of setup is that the bottom box, I wish I could shut the lights down in here. This is where the bees live. You leave them alone in there. The brood chamber stays unmolested. You put your honey supers on top. They have a little cover here, like you can see up there, just a hint of it.
Like a nuke cover.
Like a nuke cover, a migration cover that covers those sides. And the concept here is that the bees live in the bottom and you take the honey out of the top. A lot of people doing different types of ideas like this. This is called the Frankenhive. I like the name, so I pulled it out. It contains up to 3 colonies. The dimension of that is a little bit bigger than a nuke box. And you can manage it vertically like a wire hive, which you're going to hear about. Now what you see there on this level right here, you have 3 handles. And they have a divider in the middle. So the hive is vertical, and there's 3 of them side by side. Kind of sounds suspiciously like people trying to overwinter nukes. So when you take a nuke and you try to overwinter it, because you're using this as a management tool in your apiary, and you want to try and get it to survive the winter in the cold, you stack them next to each other. And the adjoining walls, the bees move in and they share the heat through the substrate. And this, if you look at it, this has probably got a divider here and a divider here, and the bees move up and they got the roof. And again, this is the brood chamber. These are the honey boxes up here. Interesting. Interesting idea. Hex hive. Made of cedar. This is what it looks like on the inside. One of the things that it has to have, and I'm going to repeat it later, is it has to have movable hives. Here, what you see is it has little frames on the outside and conventionals in the middle. The premise of this is bees building a tree, and they like that cylinder shape, straight up and down. This is the closest thing you can get to a natural tree. And I'll show you a picture later about the thickness of this thing. The wall is that thick, depending on how they built these. And you tear them up and you can treat them like a Langstroth where you add to the top, or you can treat them like a ware where you add to the bottom, your choice. Interesting idea. National Standard Hive. Looks suspiciously like a Langstroth hive, but it has different dimensions. The frames look a little sturdier, a little boxier. They tend to be made out of a little heavier substrate. You also read that they have more natural interiors, which, by the way, is appealing these days. A Langstroth hive on the inside is smooth. What you're hearing from the scientists is internal hive materials that have a coarse grid get propolized, and the propolis serves as an immunity factor inside the hive. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Why doesn't every plant in nature get eaten? Because it's built natural immunities. What insect has learned to cope with the insecticides built naturally into the plant? The bee, because it's been here as long as the plants. So they can bring that stuff back and coat their hives with it, and it becomes part of their immunity system. So natural interiors become something that is appealing now, right, in these hives. Natural substrate in the middle. And then you get to the ware hive. This is undersupered, which I'm not going to steal Chris's presentation, but you take the box and you put them under, and it's a fascinating technique. Again, used in England, and very popular in Eastern Europe and Western Europe, sorry. And very attractive in the garden and very natural substrates, a little bit different premise. Tanzania and long hive, similar, straight sides. People have adopted this methodology in the United States, and they put Langstroth hives frames inside. So same idea, cheap to make. Most of the time you build these things out of really inexpensive plywood, you paint them and you use them for a season. Now, the guy, his name is Sam Comfort, he makes the tour in the beekeeping circles. He builds these things out of scrap plywood. He uses garbage cans. He uses everything. Anarchy Hives is the guy. If you're interested, he's a hoot to watch. He'll put bees in cardboard boxes for a season and things like that. And he builds a lot of this type of stuff. Now, plastic hives. Somebody somewhere is looking to build a better bee trap, right? Better bee trap. This is called the bee house from Europe, and it's a modern take on the form factor. It's all plastic. It's almost like a cooler. It's got metal things. This is serious beekeeping. Look at this thing. They've engineered the outer lid. They've engineered the way the supers fit together. They've engineered the way the brood box is engineered. They've figured out the way that the entrance is optimized for beekeeping. The insulation, the cover board, the frame, the mesh floor, the inspection tray, the sterilization. They have every facet. If you go to their website, it's a study in creativity about how to keep bees. They've looked at every nuance, and they feel that this is the optimal beehive according to nature and according to them. Now, I see bees in trees go this way, but when a bee falls down and it's a log and a bee, this is as close to nature as you can get according to them. And what people really like about this is it's very clean looking. You can put it out in your garden, in your yard, and it looks nice. And it's neat, it's very modular, it'll never rot, you don't have to paint it.
What's the name again?
This is called the Bee House. Beehaus. H-A-U-S. So you can find these, they'll sell them to you. Now this guy, he traded up. His idea is, couldn't figure out up or down, so he built diagonal. And the premise of this is bees start at the top and work their way down. That's pretty neat. Love this stuff. Love it. There was a guy at EAS that had this hive. It looked like a dresser. And it was on this huge contraption that looked like an engine lift that you would take a motor out. And the way he set it up is you would put the bees in, and then you crank the thing, and it laid flat. And when you worked your bees and did whatever, you crank it, it'd go back up, and it stood up, and he had this big scene painted on the front. It's really neat. I don't quite understand that when you turn it sideways, all the honey's going to fall out of the cells. So it was a little wonky, and I need to put it in the shell, but good for him. So the bees live in a horizontal hive. Don't they want to build up? This doesn't make sense, does it? If bees live in a tree or whatever, why do they do that? They want to build up, they want to go down. The common thing is the bees go up, right? I like Michael Bush's take. They move in one direction. They move in the direction they want to move, not in the direction you want them to move. And if you put it in here, and they have that way to go, that's the way they're gonna go. If you put them in here and you start them on the top and they only have that way to go, that's the way they're gonna go. Put them in there or whatever. So the general answer is the bees don't breed the bugs, okay? And you can put them in whatever you want. So what about alternatives in a Langstroth form factor? A-frames, mediums only. Over here, what I have, I don't have a bottom board for it, sorry. You can run deeps. 2 deeps or 3 mediums. Same footprint. Little bit of a difference, right? Some compromises and whatever, but there are a lot of people who like this idea. There's a beekeeper in North Jersey, has a commercial operation, Landy Simone. She's a master beekeeper. That's what she uses. Mediums. Why? It's lighter. That's the big thing. All the same equipment. You don't have deep frames, medium frames, this frame, that frame. Deep. You have mediums and that's it. Okay? Downside, 3 boxes instead of 2. 30 frames instead of 20. The other thing that you'll hear is real estate. Real estate. You have a top bar and a bottom bar. Top bar and a bottom bar. Top bar and a bottom bar. Square footage for the bees to work in, the top bar and the bottom bar impact the amount of space the bees have to work with. To get the equivalent of 2 deeps, you probably have to add another 3rd, right? Is it a big deal? Bees don't care, right? A lot of people will tell you the bees don't care. Some people say that's a detriment. There are people very successfully maintaining bees in this form factor. And the big thing about it is weight. Look, 60 to 70 pounds. That's the lighter side of beekeeping. You have a bad back, that's not a lot of fun. 8-frame equipment. I asked, do they ever use 10 frames? How many of you went in your hive last week and the 2 outer frames were not built? Raise your hand. I raised both of mine. It's the chimney effect. They're right there in the middle. So somebody said, why am I went to 9 frames in my hives. I moved them together, kind of halfway between an 8 and 10 frame. What does it afford me? Sometimes it affords me bridge comb. But most of the time what it affords me is I could move a thing and pull a frame out and I'm not rolling bees and they haven't propylized it to the point where everything's wedged. I have room to work. I pull that first frame out and everything moves freely. I'm still maintaining the bee space. I clip them together and I leave open chambers on both sides. Some people clip them together and move them all to one side. Key to 9 frames, if you're going to leave that space, is make sure whatever you have in the top box, you have it set up the same way. You do not want this comb angled to that comb and interrupt the airflow between the frames. Comb should be over comb. Bee space should be maintained vertically so that they can traverse the comb. They build less bridge comb that way and so on, okay? But why not 8 frames? 2 less frames in the box, less cost for you, less weight, 64 to 72 pounds instead of 80 to 90 for a full deep. They don't use the outside frames anyway. And it's certainly big enough in New Jersey for them to have a big enough cluster to generate space and maintain the cluster over winter. This is an 8-frame hive right here. You can come up and take a look at it. It's the exact same thing, it just has 8 frames in it. And it's a lot lighter, even just like this, you can tell, right? Takes a little less space. I don't know if that's any big deal for anybody if you're doing rooftop stuff in the city. But just in general, when you're storing stuff in your garage, 8 frames. Question?
Do they build the outer frames on the main frame?
They do. They do.
So
They
they
use
count
the
to
space. Yes, Dan?
So they can count.
I missed what you said.
They can count to 8.
They can count to 8, yeah. They do, right? Yeah. So, neat idea. Less weight, not to disparage, but a lot of females would like to have less weight. They're not linebackers like me, and I'm a wuss because I hurt my back all the time. This is the inside of that frame, or that box that I was showing you. See how thick that is? Look how thick that substrate is on that hive, on that particular one. Some people say that the thicker thing provides less exchange of heat. It's a different R vector. I'm going to say this again, and I've said it before. The bees build a cluster like the crust of the earth. And they generate the heat in the middle, and they get close together on the outside to keep the heat from escaping. And like penguins do to stay warm, they circulate from the core out to the mantle and back. So they're not literally keeping the entire hive 90 degrees inside, but they do keep it 70 plus to 90 degrees in the winter so that whatever brood is there remains viable. Whatever they give off that escapes out of that cluster inside the box does keep the ambient temperature inside the hive a little bit warmer. And if you have heat escaping, as Chris was talking about, that's wasted energy. When you have thicker boxes like this, there's less exchange rate out the side of the box. This is a quilt very similar to the Langstroth. Okay? I built this box and I saw Roger brought his too. Insulation, Home Depot, very cheap. It's got newspaper in it. I first started shredded stuff from work, and it was so fine it fell down through, like his sawdust story. It was all over the hive and it made a mess. I just simply shredded it. You could put leaves. I know Roger, he puts sawdust shavings inside a burlap bag. The premise of this is heat and moisture comes up, passes through the paper, hits the lid, possibly condenses, drips on the paper absorbs it, it doesn't drip on the bees. Moisture kills bees. Moisture kills bees. So this just maintains some sort of moisture as a quilt in the top. And then it dries out. That's what the holes are for. In the wintertime, I tape the holes over. Okay? Insulation. Why would you put insulation at the top? I was convinced to build this device because I saw a video of a person who had just gone through a snowstorm. He had one of these boxes on top of one and none on the other. On the box that had this, the snow was this high. On the box that didn't, there was no snow, it had melted off. They were sitting literally right next to each other. Think of all the energy we saved with that. So I put these on my hives in the winter to see a picture in a minute. You could ventilate by putting a stick underneath. You could ventilate by putting the device that he had in the park. Here's your clean thingy. This is it. In Langstroth terms, this thing is called an emery shim. Usually find in 3/4 by 3/4 dimensions, same thing, and you put it on top. In the wintertime, you can put one of these underneath your inner cover, make sure the hole's in the front, and it will ventilate your hive. The ventilation gets rid of the moisture. Bees don't freeze. If you left your window cracked open a little bit at home, you wouldn't die, but you wouldn't freshen the air, surprisingly as much, right? So some people use the equivalent of this, which is called the emery shim. George Emery made that. If you don't have that, they do recommend, and I'll cover that when we get to full management, that you put a stick underneath the front or whatever, right? So I'll get to that in a second, but yes, ventilation is important. And that's why the holes are there. Now in the summertime, I just pull the tape off and it sits up there. Or I just take it off because sometimes it gets in the way and I'd rather have the feeder. Gotta be movable comb. Okay? And when you consider, if you ever want to build a hive, it's a science all to itself. Substrate, airflow, thickness, height, ventilation, entrance, moisture. I had the dream of building the NWNJBA, which is a hive. I want to build a cartridge hive. So you don't have to pull the box off, you just pull the thing out from the front. and I'm researching how to do it. Trust me, there's 10 billion ideas about how to build hives. There's one really neat site, I'll have to link to it on our website, and it shows all the hives of the past. People have made poke hives, they've made hives that the comb rotates out this way on a pivot. They've made all this, people have thought of everything. It's astonishing if you go look. So Langstroth alternatives, by the way, it doesn't have to just be form factor. This is a cedar hive. This is made by Evans Cedar Hives out of South Jersey. It's just made out of cedar. You come and pick it up, it smells really good. It's natural. This one has been coated with boiled linseed, so it's not meant to be painted. It breathes. It's a little bit different, but it's a nice hive. My thought this year is I'm going to build a wary hive. I'm going to deploy this hive. I'm going to deploy that hive. I'm going to get a styrofoam hive. I'm going to put all these in my yard and see how it goes, just to have fun. That's my plan. And then I'm going to get an out yard where I'm going to put all my Langstroth equipment and do serious beekeeping. So this guy is my project from last year, and wary will be my project over the winter. The origin of this hive is, I used to live in Ringo's, across from the post office. Somebody brought me, after they did a remodel, all this tongue and groove oak flooring scraps. And I had it in my garage, and when I moved, I brought it all with me to my current house. And every time I go in the garage, what am I going to do with that stuff? And somewhere along the line I said, you know, I'll build a hive. This is all oak, like nice oak stuff. It's all tongue and groove. That's why I said it's boutique. It's just something to play with, and I always wanted to try foundationless. These are top bar hives, and I'm going to hand these top bar hive frames. Actually, I cheated.
I just passed mine around.
Roger helped me with a design, and I was going to build them. I have a table saw, whatever. And then I found these at Kelly. You know what this is? This is an option for you to have foundationless frames in your hive. Typical frame has the side bars and the bottom bars, and you slide your foundation in. This has a ridge on it, which you wax, and look, it has the notches, and it's the same thing. Instead of putting your foundation in, you just put this in and you have your frames on the side. I cheated because I built the Langstroth format. The one difference between what I did and whatever, if you look, these have a little notch angle because when I put them down, they didn't fit in here. So that's the only modification I made. Now, got a problem. This has these sidebars that create space. They sit shoulder to shoulder and they create the bee space between them. Oops. When I put them in like this, they're not right. Got a problem. Doesn't maintain the right bee space. And the other thing that I want, can I just dump bees in here? They're gonna fly away. I need comb. So I need to be able to put this inside of a regular hive. And when I do that, frame to frame, they fit in those holes and they don't maintain the bee space right. Can you see that? They sit flush with each other. They don't have the shoulder that they're supposed to have. So I said, how am I going to solve this problem? And I'll hand this around. Go ahead and pass it around.
Solve the problem with that.
I solved the problem this way.
Well, he's here.
This is wrong.
Upper back.
So first I said, well, I'll drill a hole and I'll put a dowel. I measured the dowel, the same width as the top bar, and I put them in. I said, this is great. They'll go just like that. And I put it through the meat of the top of the frame. But the problem is when I map them up to a real thing, it doesn't maintain the bee space. So try number 2 was this. I actually drilled right through the slot, and I put them together. And now these fit just like this. I don't have them glued in yet. And they sit shoulder to shoulder. And they have a hole, and they maintain the same bee space as if you put frame by frame. And they sit in here.
That's what the
So
dowel-
wait a minute. I did something wrong. These, a traditional top bar hive, is meant to be solid across the top when you put the frames. They should look like this. They should look like this. They should look solid like this. The bees can't get between them. I don't want that. Remember what I said, I want a Langstroth to go on top. So what am I going to do? I'm going to let the bees come up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a window shade, plastic nylon window shade. And I'm just going to lay that across the top of the hive. It's plastic and nylon. And if you've ever seen people who do hive inspections with those rollers, that's what they use. This is a tip for you. I'm doing an inspection on my hive. I take the lid off. All of a sudden the sunlight pours in and everybody's staring at me on top of the hive. Not a good thing. Take one of those nylon window shades, cut it the size of your box, put it on a roller, and lay it over. And then when you want to look at this side, you roll it backwards. And you just roll it to here, and you can work on these 3 frames. If you go to Linda Tillman, Linda's Bee blog, she'll show you how to use this. She has videos on this. So I'm going to take that idea and cover this off. And when I need to, I'll take it off, and I'll put my honey supers on top of this. And again, this will fit 3 alongside. And this will be my honey chamber, and they'll have bee space they can pass up through. So, that being said, I have no practical experience with this thing. Roger does. Roger has 6 of these.
I've got 6.
So if you want to talk about that.
The one that he showed on the first one there with the legs, you can get that plan off of biobees.com. That's where I started and built mine. I built mine out of 1 inch, actually 1.5 inch pine. Some planks that I had laying around that I had cut years ago for making rocket horses. But anyway, I passed the bar around. It's out of one of my top bar hives. They're very easy to maintain. The bees seem much more docile in them. Fact is, I do bee tours over at Old York Cellars. I'll be doing them this weekend, tomorrow and Sunday. They're having their festival there. And most of the time I'll open up a top bar hive because they are so docile. And I'll pull a bar out and I'll walk right over to the people and show them the bees on it, and maybe show them the queen or something. Walk away from the hive, walk back. I'll pull a bar out that's got honey onto it with the bees and everything, and they can stick their finger right into it and taste the honey right out of the hive. You'd be surprised how many people can eat it like that. One time I did that, I stuck my finger in it, tasted it, and one went on the trail. She said, "Oh!" I said, "What's the matter? That's just natural way. You can eat it. You can't eat it any fresher." My grandson will actually pull a bar out sometimes and take a bite right out of the side of it. But as he was saying here, the following board regulates the side. I would definitely put more of a hole in here if you get many bees into it. And if you want to split a hive, if they got swarm cells or something in here, you can just take the queen, put her on the other side with a couple frames of brood, put the following board in the middle, and you got 2. Once the other one's been 3 queen and established, you can move them into another hive or something. Bob Oppenheimer's been with me several times, and he'll attest to that. I've got a little small one I made that I call my top bar nuke that I can move bees around with. But I had one hive made it through the winter. And between that one and one I call a swarm floor, I've got 6 of them occupied now, just by splitting things up. And if there's swarm cells, and one of them had so many swarm cells in, I made 3 colonies out of it. But
So when you pull these frames, and they're hanging just from that, if you go like this to look at it, you're going to break it off.
right, so you want to pull that out, and when you want to turn it around, you turn it like this. You keep the weight sideways here, and then you can turn it around once you got it upside down if you want to look at the other side. Especially when they're new comb, they are very fragile and they'll come off easy. I've been doing some different experimenting, 1.25" bars for brood, 1.5" for honey. And you can actually space them out, the honey frames out a little bit more with little strips, and they'll build honeycomb that thick if you let them. And you get a lot of honey in one of that. But I started out several years ago just to experiment. I seen it on biobees.com. At that time, it was the Bee Wrangler, Phil Chandler, and
He
got
does a
interested in it.
podcast, by the way, if you're interested in that.
Yeah. But
He's written a book.
I've had very good success with my top bar hives. In the wintertime, I'll lay burlap or something on top of here to help insulate it. I've even put bubble wrap up there already. I've got the screen bottom board in the bottom like that, and I'll just screw a board fast to the bottom for the winter. Other than that, it's open all year round. I had one hive last year. I had never even put the bottom board on, and they done all right.
I didn't mention it, but this has a screen in the bottom. It's not solid. And what I intend to do is create a cover for it, and I'll just bungee it up, and when I want to take it off, I'll do it that way. This is just 4 boards arranged. This is a false roof. That insulation that you saw, there's insulation at the top of this. That thick insulation is through the whole side of this. And then it's got a 1/4" roof, so it's not heavy, covered with aluminum. I don't know that I would ever do this again because the edges can be sharp, but I don't anticipate having a problem. I've seen these built with hinges on them so that you can actually tilt them up. But for now, this is actually, it's light enough for me. You could pick it up. It's not that heavy. And actually, you'd be surprised how much the insulation weighs. When it didn't have it, it was actually pretty easy to move. But it's pretty functional and you can get it off. I have a stand out in my yard, an industrial angle iron stand that someone got somewhere, and I'm going to put this on top of that. So it'll be the right height for me, and I'll just see how it works. Have a lot of fun with it.
My top bar hives, I've got windows on the side where I can, when I'm doing tours, open up, people come around and look in, they can't believe there's so many bees on the hive. It's very interesting. It's a lot of fun giving these bee tours. If anybody wants to check out my top bar hives this weekend over at Old York Saw's having a festival, I'll be doing tours. And most of the time I'll be opening up a top bar hive.
We also have a video of Roger going through doing a presentation up on our YouTube channel. And if you've never been to our YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/NWNJBA. There's 100 and something videos up there on almost any topic you want. So that being said, being mindful of time, any questions for Roger? Yeah.
You had 2 or 3 colonies, let's say 2, going there. Would that lend itself to trying one of the tower hives?
Yeah, my plan for this, I put 1 entrance in it. I'm going to put 2 more there. I'm actually going to put 3 entrances on the other side. And my expectation is I'm going to put a colony here, a colony here, a colony here, and I'll put a cork in that side and open this one. So the entrance will be here, the entrance will be here, and the entrance will be out the back, and I could stack them as high as I want. I also contemplated whether to put them in the end. That's the $1 million question. Can you put an entrance in the end or the side, which is better? I could not find the answer to that. Yeah, so I decided side from an engineering standpoint. And again, I still have a little work to do to finish this, but I'll do it over the winter and deploy it in the spring. What I did do, as I mentioned before, is I have these combs in my current hives for the fall nectar flow, and they're building them out so that they will populate these. What I'm going to do is take them out. They're obviously square because they're in a lang, and I'll just shave them down and put them in here to get them started.
Rather than doing that, you can just take a Langstroth frame
Yeah.
and take a pair of loppers, and just
Cut
cut
it
them
off.
down on an angle and use them. I've done that already.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of have this groove thing on it, so.
I did that in order to populate one of my hives, and I did that to put some comb in when I dumped the package in.
You want to give us that YouTube address again?
Sure. youtube.com/NWNJBA. NJBA, Northwest New Jersey Beekeepers Association. It's the initials.
Website too.
Go to our homepage, NWBA.NJBeekeepers.org. There's a link to Rogers Forum. There's a link to our YouTube. There's a link to other resources for things that we've had. We have a Facebook page there. If you want to interact and ask questions, you can always go there. So you could go to either our homepage is NWBA.NJBeekeepers.org. Yeah.
I have a question for you. When you put those honey supers out, you're putting 3 of them across?
I could put 3, or I could put 1 and use migration covers.
Is that was what I was gonna ask you, what are you gonna do for covers, for the lid on it? You're gonna put 3 separate ones, because you got spacing issues, or you're gonna put the solid one on top?
I probably will see where I'm at. If this side is only built out, I'll put a super on it. A migration cover is simply a flat board with 2 edges that hang over to keep it from falling off. And you just set it over. So I'd set 1 on top, 1 here, 1 here.
But no ventilation then above the honey super?
No, then so I could put a stick underneath or do something. I'll figure something out. Yep.